Hi everyone. So today I want to wax lyrical a little bit about, well, a defence of Evolve and actually of in-app purchasable content within AAA games. Now, I have made much over the years about my distaste for this practice, but I had something of an epiphany the other day. Because here's the thing, if we keep shouting and bawling the way we have been doing that we only want to pay full price for a game and the game must include absolutely everything from day one, we shouldn't have any cosmetics or extra things we can buy. Here's the problem we're going to run into. Publishers are going to stop greenlighting games. It's as simple as that. If we look at the development costs between the last generation and this new generation, what we see is that for publishers and developers, the costs in most cases have doubled and in some cases have tripled to bring these games into the next generation platforms, the PlayStation 4, the Xbox One, and obviously PC as well, keeping up with the very high end. Now here's the problem. If publishers cannot guarantee at very least a good return on that investment of developing the game, they're not going to develop the game. We've already seen in 2014 and already with the release schedule of 2015 that there is a sizable drop in the number of AAA games coming onto the market. This can only be because of those development costs and the risk involved for publishers getting it wrong. You put out a game, it's not successful, well, you basically hold your own company. And so they have to make sure that in every possible opportunity that they have to get that DLC content in there, because at the end of the day, just selling box copies is not going to make them a return on their investment. In most cases, that's just about the break-even point for them. And that's if they sell a really large number of units, you know, over 500,000, and in most cases we're talking multiple millions of boxes shipped. So as an industry, what do we actually want? As gamers, what do we want? Well, we want games. We want great games. We want games that are sparkly, that set our imaginations on fire. But we're not going to get that unless we allow the industry to adapt its business model so that it can continue to deliver those games that we want and demand. When we look at a game like Evolve, there's been so much negativity around that DLC content, the cosmetic items available in the store on day one. And to begin with, I was a bit like, well, shouldn't that just have been included on the disc, seeing as it's included on the disc? But then as I started to play Evolve, I realised that actually we've got a pretty good amount of content for our money. The game is engaging. As it kind of develops, it begins to branch off in different kind of strategies and playstyles, depending on the mix of the hunters and the particular monster you're facing. So I found myself asking, does some cosmetic items that I'm not being forced to pay for really make that much of a difference? If the upshot is the publisher has confidence because they're able to make a small amount of extra money ongoing over the lifetime of this game, which in theory should be around a year to 18 months, maybe 2 years until they release Evolve 2. Well, I'm not being forced to buy this content. In fact, if I felt like buying the content, I could. There are some discounts there by the looks of it as well. And so I kind of think, well, it's not impacting my gameplay. They're cosmetic items. They're doing nothing to change the formula of how the game plays or anything like that. Essentially, they're a sideshow. And it seems as gamers, we started to become distracted by the sideshow instead of focusing on the actual thing we've bought or we want to buy and play, which is the game itself. All you need to do is to consider this. How many AAA games are there out there that don't include DLC content? None. So you're kind of a little bit, as a group of gamers, we're sort of sitting here trying to be King Canute. We're trying to turn back the tide. Well, I'm sorry, the door opened years ago with mobile gaming, you know. Floodgates opened, water everywhere. At the end of the day, the industry has been wiped clean now. This is the new industry. It's an industry that says, yes, here is a full price copy of a game, and here is Day 1 DLC, here is expansion content, here is premium content, etc. Here are cosmetics. This is the industry we now occupy. And at the end of the day, if we carry on the way we are going, we are going to end up destroying the one thing we love, which is great AAA games, because publishers aren't going to be able to make them. They're not going to be able to afford it. It's as simple as that. It's always been said in the movie industry that most Hollywood studios are just 3 turkeys away from bankruptcy. Well, in the video games industry, they are 1 turkey away from bankruptcy. It's as simple as that. You don't have the opportunity to get it wrong anymore. And so, what I would ask of gamers everywhere is take a little bit of a moment to pause and ask yourself, do you want games or do you want a Dust Bowl? Because if we carry on the way we're going, if we keep lambasting companies for just trying to make enough profit to make the next game and obviously return a bit to their investors, then we're going to end up with an industry that only takes the safest bets, that only produces shooters, which doesn't want to take even the slightest risk and certainly doesn't want to attempt to increase its takings over a year's lifetime in case it upsets a core group of gamers who are very, very vocal. We can see this when we look at the Steam page for Evolve, all because either Steam, Valve, or the developers made a little error. They failed to lock out people who downloaded the alpha and the beta trials of Evolve on Steam, allowing all of those people to then basically destroy the Steam reviews for that game when it eventually launched. So essentially there are hundreds and hundreds of people all giving a red thumbs down to Evolve who have never actually played the bloody game. Not the final game that's been released, not the final game with all of the content which shows us how this game kind of spiders out and branches as you start to play it. So what we essentially have, because of this DLC issue, because gamers have jumped down the throat of some cosmetic items, for God's sake, cosmetics, something that they would be more than happy with in League of Legends, Dota 2 and many other games out there. Just because a game is charging you for a boxed copy, I don't think it's any longer acceptable to turn around and say, you can't have DLC, you can't have cosmetics, because ultimately this industry is not going to survive unless we allow this to happen, unless we allow the industry to mature its business models. And so, as a defence of this practice, something that many of you who are regulars here will probably be quite surprised about, I think it's time as an industry we grew up a little bit, along with the publishers. This is a two-way conversation. They're trying things out to see what will work, what doesn't work, they will not do again. But at the same time, if we all keep screaming too loudly, we're going to put them off completely. They won't explore these business models for fear of having their game ruined on Steam by, quite frankly, petty-minded individuals who actually were never going to buy the game in the first place, were they? Let's face it, they were never going to buy the game. And so I find myself almost crying to the universe to say, guys, girls, gamers, well-wishers and supporters, next time you see a game loaded out with DLC, with in-app purchases and so on, and a full-price box copy, just ask yourself this question. How many millions did it cost to produce this game? And how are they going to then have enough money to produce the next game? At the end of the day, that requires this new business model. This requires a model which allows consumers to pick up things like cosmetic items, which do not impact the core gameplay, but they just make people feel, I really like my character and I want to have a new skin. That should be acceptable. One thing I'm not changing my stance on is I'm not changing my stance on pay-to-win formulas. If you're buying guns, that is unacceptable. Gamers, we shouldn't accept that, nor should publishers. That is really what I would call a cheap shot. But at the end of the day, when it comes to those cosmetic items, those items that will help a developer to get either their game published in the first place, the most hard task of all, to get a publisher on board willing to front those development costs, but also ability to then develop the follow-on, the sequel to the game that has built up a good core audience. We have to allow this to happen. If we don't, I'm afraid we are condemning the entire industry. Literally, we are condemning the industry that we ourselves love and we ourselves want to produce games. It has to change, and as a mindset, we need to start asking ourselves that very simple question. How many millions is it going to cost to develop this game? And how exactly are the developers going to make that money back? Because I can tell you now, it's not going to come through selling the box copies. You'll break even if you're lucky. Thanks for watching. Don't forget, you can pledge $1 a month on Patreon to help support the Androidizen, keeping us 100% independent. An honest opinion direct from the UK. If you pledge $1 a month, you'll be entered into our prize pool to win cool items from our review bag. Also, don't forget to like, subscribe and comment. We love to chat.